In the Cubicle, this is where we speak all things about the workplace here on the Move. And in some workplaces, a drink after hours with your colleagues, or even sometimes during the hours because we're celebrating something in the office, is part of office culture. So from creative agencies with stocked bars to end of week Friday drinks for many, alcohol often shows up where work and social lives blend. But what legally and ethically is allowed when it comes to alcohol on the job, and of course what happens when the culture crosses into risky or discriminatory territory and behavior. So that's what we're speaking about today: alcohol in the workplace. What are the policies, what are the gray areas, and some of the power dynamics that can really blur the lines in this regard. We're bringing in HR Specialist Thando Mncube once again on the show to help us chat about this. Thando, it's always a pleasure to have you. How are you doing?
Hi, Palesa. Hi, Ben. Fantastic. Thanks, and
Hey,
yourself?
hey.
Doing good, thank you. Yeah, you know what? These things, look, a boring office is a boring office. And some people feel like, we are human after all. It's Friday today. Hey, colleagues, let's go quickly catch a drink together. And some of these colleagues might not just be your own, the people that are working in your line of work. Some of them could be your managers and your boss, and you guys all hang out on a Friday to have a drink. Some offices have a stocked bar there where on a Friday or just on a random celebratory day, someone can have a drink on their desk and be working at the same time. There are so many instances that involve workplace with alcohol. So let's speak about that. These dynamics about alcohol in work, or maybe not just inside the work itself, but then the alcohol dynamics of the workplace. We are adults, right? We can have a drink every now and then, can't we?
You're 100% correct, Palesa. And I think it's very important when we talk about this topic to consider that in general, when we enter the workplace, we enter as full grown adults that are expected to manage themselves or conduct themselves in a way that is appropriate for being in public, but specifically for being in the workplace. I think where things become a bit murky is when your behavior or your choice of lifestyle starts to impact the safety of the people that you work with, or indeed the ability that you have to actually do the work that you've been hired to do.
Hmm. Tando, let's speak a little bit about that, right? Because, in some industries, it's pretty mainstream that there's going to be an alcohol bar fridge somewhere. And maybe even during work hours, you can just grab one and just, pour it up on the balcony because you stressed about the heavy deadlines, right? But do you think that there should be a clear policy then if the environment is like that?
100%, Benjamin. And while I can't quote, I do know that in a lot of these organizations, usually the organizations that make the alcohol, they're very specific about when you can drink, how much you can drink, and more
Hmm.
importantly, your, let's call it, permission to drink does not supersede the normal code of conduct that would be expected of employees. So just because the organization provides you with the alcohol, it does not save you or preclude you from any sanctions that might be in the code of conduct of that organization.
Now, let's speak about that. Even though there is a code of conduct in an organization, some of these things are seen more like, relaxed things that we do in the office and maybe not that ingrained in policy, especially if there's like a bar fridge there, or, if colleagues on different work levels go and hang out and have a drink together. Sometimes work can be spoken of in those environments. What are some of the fine lines that we should look out for when we look at alcohol in workspaces?
So I think the first and most important thing to remember is that while you might have friendly relationships with your colleagues, with your bosses, with the people you work with, they are exactly that. They are your manager, they are your colleagues, they're not your friends, and this is not home. So I think that's the first thing to consider, regardless of the situation. I mean, we've heard of many cases where people have gone to, say, year-end function, many of which are starting to happen around about now,
Yeah.
and people get there and misbehave, thinking, oh, well, it's after hours, it's a year in function, and find themselves in some serious trouble with HR. I think one of the things people need to remember is that while alcohol can be used to, as a social lubricant or to help people to relax a little bit, it also lowers your inhibitions. And the repercussion of that is that some of the things that you end up doing will definitely be against policy. And with or without alcohol, if it was in the workplace and it's against the code of conduct, you will be subject to whatever disciplinary processes are in place for that organization.
So the responsibility is just me, the employee. What about the employer here? I mean, come on. There's a lot of gin here, and hey, there's a little bit of tequila there in the corner. Come on, you provided for it, so I'm gonna indulge.
Well, if a drug dealer is providing cocaine, does that mean you should indulge? I think
Oh,
ultimately we
come
are all
on,
adults, right?
Thando.
No, we're not promoting cocaine.
Definitely not. And that's the point I'm making, is that we expect you to act as an adult, which is why we hire people that are grown. We expect you to behave in a way that is appropriate for the world of work. We expect you to remember that you signed a contract and you signed a code of conduct, which suggests that you will behave in a way that is appropriate for the workplace. Now, organizations.
I'm not so sure.
Go ahead.
Can I just kind of give a little bit of a rebuttal here? Because look, it's blurry. The moral coding is very blurry, because behavior, in inverted commas, has not been stipulated what is wrong behavior in some institutions, right? And even if something is happening in the premises of the building, it's after hours anyway.
It is after hours, but in a lot of employment contracts that you see, it does stipulate that your behavior as an employee matters whether, as long as you're on the premises or you're representing the organization in any way, shape, or form. So
Okay.
let's say, for example, in the business, or let's say you're at a function, an award ceremony, etc. For as long as you're there in your capacity as the employee of that organization, the terms and conditions of your employment still stand.
Yeah, I don't think many of us actually do read the fine print of those employment contracts. We're just happy that we've gotten the job that we had applied for, and then we go straight into it. Look at how much we're getting and what our expectations are. But there are so many things about environmental culture that play a role. But let's speak about that, right? The environmental culture, because cultures differ in different workplaces. And there are some workplaces where people might be working with like heavy machinery or things that might be dangerous. And in those workplaces, you come in the morning, sometimes you have to blow on that little device that detects whether you have alcohol in your system. Sometimes it's completely by surprise and they say, hey, randomly, let's just blow in this thing and see who's been drinking alcohol, even if it's not like an everyday kind of policy. In those instances, how does one really sort of cut their relationship with alcohol in and outside of work? Because you can have fun. Maybe you were hosting your family on the Sunday and you guys had a good time and some drinks. That alcohol will still be on your system on the Monday morning, but you're not sure if they're going to have you take the breathalyzer or not.
So when you work in a safety intensive environment, we're talking in your mines, we're talking where you operate heavy machinery, in your railways, etc. I think the best advice I would give you is assume you're going to be breathalyzed every day, right? Whether you work in the office or you work, on the ground operating that machinery. So that's the first thing. Assume you're going to blow, whether or not you know it's going to happen. Because in those environments, they tend to be quite strict stipulations about the blood alcohol, the allowed blood alcohol level, because safety is a key factor in the running of that organization. Um, you know, like you said, they can't tell us, or an employee can't tell us what we can do outside of work. But the minute your behavior or your activities outside of work impede on the safety of the other people that you work with, your own safety, or impedes on your ability to conduct your work, then they have a right to call you in for misconduct hearings.
All right, Thando, stay there on the line. This is a very intriguing conversation indeed. We're speaking to Thando Mncube, who is an HR specialist. What's your take? Drinking at work, especially if it is allowed, if it's kind of a relaxed working environment. Maybe you can, during lunch, have one or two, maybe three, I'm not sure. But you see, that's where the lines get blurry, right? What do you think about alcohol and work? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +27 63 406 9126.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Every voice matters. Every moment counts. Celebrate life with Channel Africa, the African perspective. Now in your pocket.
Hey, 21 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You can join us live on our live stream. Thando Mncube is joining us there, an HR specialist in our conversation. Remember, we are on our YouTube page, simply titled Channel Africa, or use the handle at Channel Africa 1, or you can also find us on our Facebook page where the stream is also available there. So check that Facebook page, Channel Africa. And today in our In The Cubicle feature, Thando is helping us understand how do we draw the line in the workplace when it comes to alcohol consumption. There are many relaxed industries where alcohol is not taboo. How do you navigate that? Thando, let's talk a little bit about, industries that are alcohol friendly, maybe the alcohol industry in itself. I've seen people who work in this industry and they are always at a party, they're always at a launch, they're always at some carnival of some sort. It's always fun working that industry. Like, I want this person's job because they're always doing something fun, right? But over time, you can kind of find yourself just flowing with just this grandeur experience of, I've got the best job ever because I work at SAB, right? So how do you navigate that? Because it's tricky, isn't it?
It is very tricky. And maybe to add a layer of complexity, even in those industries that aren't necessarily as relaxed, a lot of important conversations happen, with a glass of whiskey in hand or a glass of wine. It goes back to what I said in the beginning. We are here to work. You're employed to do a job, and there's certain behaviors that are expected of you while you are doing that work. So even if you have a launch and you're having drinks with clients, or you're having some serious conversations about strategy around a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of wine, it's important to remember the responsibility you have and the contract that you signed when you joined that organization. We've seen many cases where people will go out with their management. Let's say we're away for a team breakaway, having drinks with management, and you wake up in the morning and your management is fresh and ready to go, and you're the one that is, dealing with the
Yeah.
You're
hangover,
not
or
ready.
you kind of overdid it. So I think it's also important to remember, firstly, understand your own tolerance, right? Just because everyone around you is having the shots or drinking the whiskey, understand your own tolerance when it comes to alcohol, and manage that. Ultimately, if you want to have a good time, go home and do it with your friends, but work is still work, regardless of the context that you find yourself in.
There is this particular conversation I don't think can be had without speaking about addiction, which is quite a serious issue for many people and some people within the workplace, because we think alcohol looks a particular way. Maybe you had too much and woohoo, you're having a good time. But even within our workspaces, some of our colleagues are functional alcoholics and they do need a drink every day. And when sometimes that can come into or affect your workspace or the work that you do, your employer can come to you and just say, yeah, you're not doing the job that I hired you to do that well anymore, so you're fired. But you can actually come back and say, well, isn't it my employer's responsibility to also care about me? I mean, now workplaces are starting to see, the human capacity in a more holistic way, thinking about our mental health, about depression and many other things that we as humans do struggle with. If someone in the workplace is struggling with alcoholism and it starts affecting their work, what is the employee's responsibility thereon? Is it just to say, if you don't do the job that we pay you to do, you're fired? Or do they have a little bit more of a responsibility to do?
They definitely have a bit more of a responsibility. And when we also understand that alcoholism is a medical condition, so it is seen as any other medical condition. Where someone is struggling with alcoholism or any other addiction, we have what is called an incapacity process, right? Where there'll be an investigation done to understand this specific incapacity linked to your medical condition, in this case, addiction. And then the organization would provide support to help this person deal with it. So whether it's rehab or whether it's reassigning them to a role where their addiction will not impede on their ability to still perform. So organizations definitely do have that responsibility to understand if this is just gross misconduct. So Tando had a good time last night, forgot that she has a job and came to work drunk, or if this person actually has a medical condition, which is addiction.
And also, maybe you do have a friendly policy around alcohol drinking in the workplace. Do you think you should also instill some procedures to prevent problems like alcohol addiction as the employer? Like maybe I was speaking to Peter earlier on and Asanda introducing the subject matter that we're speaking about now. And I was saying maybe you can introduce limited tokens that you can only have so many drinks in a week.
So I've had the, I call it, privilege of attending some of those functions at organizations like SAB and Diageo and all of these alcohol houses, and that's actually what they usually do. So if they're having their Friday hangouts, they give you a limited number of tokens, and they usually have people that are there to check, how's your behavior? Do we need to cut you off at the bar? So a lot of the time, these organizations are very understanding of the fact that it's easy to overindulge, and they do put in the checks and balances in place. I think, secondly, having an employee assistance program that is widely advertised, where employees can actually, call that hotline to check if they think they have a bit of a program problem, or if it's seen as a recurring issue and the employee is not willing to accept it, where a manager can refer that employee for that EAP program to firstly diagnose if this is a bigger problem rather. So am I just misbehaving or do I have an actual problem? And if it's an actual problem, a lot of the time you'll get free help from those institutions, and that's usually covered by your employer.
But when does the employer then draw the line, right? We know that alcohol addiction is a huge problem. Like you said, it's a medical condition, and some people do go and seek for that help, but it doesn't always come as immediately as we hope for it to do. How long can an employer keep you on the job when you actually aren't that functional anymore? How long do they pay you for because you're trying to deal with this medical condition, but you're still sort of just taking money away from the organization and not really bringing much in?
So I think, as with all, employee issues, and the responsibility of the employer is to find a way to make things work. Once you've done everything you can as an employer, so I've referred you for EAP, we've taken you to a rehab center, we've maybe moved you to a less stressful or less safety intensive job, and there's still no help, then the employee can begin the process of what we call medical boarding or dismissal due to incapacity. I think what's important, and I mean, even if you go and do the research on some of the cases that have gone to your labor court or your CCMA, is that the employer needs to show that they made an effort to assist the employee. And if that did not yield the results, then that employee can be dismissed for incapacity. The benefit of incapacity versus misconduct is that it's not call it a red mark against your name,
Sure.
right? Just like if you were dismissed for an extended disability or anything like that, it's not a red mark against your name. Unlike misconduct, where you've been fired, this is more, we couldn't find a suitable role to accommodate this person with this particular condition and therefore had to let them go.
Well, Thando, it's always fantastic speaking to you. Where can we find you online?
So you can find me on my Instagram, that is at Miss Tee Mncube, Mncube, or on LinkedIn, which is probably the best place to
Sure.
engage. Look for Thando Mncube and you'll find me there.
Thanks. Always good hanging out with you. Thank you for joining us once again in our In The Cubicle feature. That's Thando Mncube, who is an HR specialist. What's your